Assalamu alaikum everyone. Sir Shafat Khan back on your screen. I hope you're doing well. Okay, so today we're gonna do the NUMS 2016 paper, which is 180 MCQs long. Okay, let's start off with the physics section. All statements are correct about the third law of motion, except what is Newton's third law of motion telling us? Newton's third law of motion says that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. But how do you identify the Newton third law pair forces? So to identify the pair forces, you just need to replace the two words on and by. Okay, for example, I say that A applies force on B, right? So this can be written as force is applied by A on B. So this is your first force. The other force is going to be the force applied by B on A. Okay, so the opposite. So just replace their positions. Just replace their positions to the second force. And remember one thing, these two forces are never in equilibrium, okay? They never balance each other out. They never balance out. They're always in the opposite direction, but they will never balance out. So because they are being applied on different objects. So they are not applied on the same body, they are applied on a different body. And they're asking us which statement is not correct. Okay. So this one, option D, is not correct, because the Newton third law of forces are not applied on the same body to maintain equilibrium. They are applied on different bodies and they do not maintain equilibrium. Now, a mass has a constant acceleration. What is true about the force applied on it? So if F is equals to ma is Newton's second law formula that you know, acceleration stays constant, then the force has to stay constant as well, because the mass doesn't change either. So both of them have to stay constant. So what happens to the force? It has to stay constant, but because the acceleration is constant, now we don't know if it is zero or not. We don't know that. But because no other information is given, we can just assume that it has to stay constant but not zero. This can be a possible answer. Is directly proportional to the square of the displacement. A force is directly proportional or directly proportional to velocity. Is force directly proportional to velocity? Well, that is not true either, because force has to stay constant in this case. Acceleration is constant. That is because the force that is being applied on it is constant. So it's constant but not zero. We can say that. Okay, let's move on. If temperature is increased from 200 Kelvin to 800 Kelvin, then what would be the change in pressure at a constant volume? So for this, you have to apply a formula that should include temperature, pressure, and volume. So this can be done using the general gas equation, ideal gas equation, or you can just use another formula, P1 V1 over T1 equals T2 V2 over T2. This is also a modified form of the general gas equation, okay, ideal gas equation. You can just plug in the values in here. Okay, so 200 Kelvin to 800 Kelvin, and what would be the change in pressure at constant volume? Oh, okay. They're just asking about pressure. Volume is staying constant, so we can just remove out the volume. It's just P1 over T1 equals P2 over T2. Okay? Or, yeah, we can just do this. So, if the original pressure was P when the temperature was 200, then what would be the new pressure? Let's just call it P2. The temperature is 800. Okay? It's going to increase by 4 times. Okay, just solve this, get the value of P2. P2 turns out to be 4 times of P. ठीक है ना, ये 200 से ये कैंसिल हो जाएगा, 4 हो जाएगा, 4 वहां जाएगा. So it's gonna become 4P. अब ये जो 4P है, the new pressure is 4 times the original pressure, so it increases by a factor of 4. There you go, that's your answer. Then question 4. If each particle of the fluid is passing through the same point, what would be the flow? This is the definition of a streamline flow. Okay. This is the definition of a streamline flow. That's the standard term that we use for it. Density of blood, because blood contains a lot of substances, is considered more than water. Okay, it doesn't only have water, it has a lot of other additional stuff in addition to water. Blood, a body moving on fluid will experience the drag force. Drag force is the fluid friction. Okay, it's the fluid friction, the friction experienced when moving through a liquid. Centripetal force is not the answer. It's the force responsible for circular motion. Centrifugal force, not at all. And so let's move on. If a substance can undergo plastic deformation until it breaks, it is. Now, you can just check this out yourself and get the answer. Okay, just go on to the textbook and see what you get over there. Taken up. The stress is applied on a body, then the ratio of the change in volume of the original volume will be volumetric strain. Okay, आगे बढ़ते हैं. वॉल्यूमेट्रिक स्ट्रेन क्या होता है भाई? इसको बल्क मॉड्यूलस भी कहते हैं. बल्क मॉड्यूलस तो मतलब इसके एसोसिएटेड जो मॉड्यूलस होता है बल्क मॉड्यूलस होता है. क्योंकि वॉल्यूम में चेंज आ रहा है ना, change in volume upon original volume. So this is volumetric strain. If a wave can be polarized, then that means it has to be a transverse wave. Okay, longitudinal waves are not polarized. This is an important question, has been tested a number of times. The electron current is chiefly due to electron current. कहाँ से शुरू होता है? Electrons कहाँ से निकलते हैं? Electrons come out from the cathode. Okay, if you draw out an electrical circuit over here, let's say there is a resistor here. So in this electrical circuit, this is the negative terminal, this is the positive terminal of the battery. Electrons come out of the cathode and enter the anode like this. Okay, so this is due to the cathode. And if a wire having a current of 10 amperes has 3T magnetic field, what will be the magnetic field at double the distance? Okay, so this is a wire. Okay, and current is passing through it of 10 amperes. Magnetic field has a value of 3T at a particular distance, let's say D. Okay, now they're saying if we double the distance from D to 2D, current is staying the same, I assume. So what would be the new B? Let's just call it B prime. What would be B prime? So first of all, you need to know the formula of B and its relationship with D and I. B is directly proportional to the current passing through it and is inversely proportional to the distance from it. Okay, it's inversely proportional to the distance at which you are taking the measurement of B. So now current is staying constant, so you're not doing anything to the current at all, right? Just looking at the distance. Now they is saying that the distance has doubled, right? Distance double हो जाएगा तो B क्या हो जाएगा? क्योंकि inverse relation है, B is gonna become half. So it reduces by a factor of 2. Get it? It's gonna become 3T upon 2. Becomes triple is not the correct answer, okay? Because this is the formula. P is proportional to current over D. Yeah, so it has to be lesser. It cannot be greater at all. And this also makes sense logically. If you go away from the wire, its magnetic field is going to become weaker, right? It cannot become stronger. What is true regarding magnetic force and magnetic intensity? So if electrons movement is parallel to the magnetic field, it will rotate clockwise. Let's just try drawing this out. If let's say this is the north pole of the magnet and this is the south pole of the magnet, okay? And electrons are entering. This is the direction of the magnetic field. Now, if electrons move in the same direction over here as the magnetic field, what happens? How do you calculate the force exerted on the electron? The formula is PQV sine theta. What's going to be the value of theta if both of them are parallel? both of them are parallel, the value of theta becomes 0, and sine 0 is 0. So that means if it is parallel, the electron will not experience any force. It's just going to move straight. It's not going to move up or down. It's not going to rotate clockwise or anti-clockwise. This is wrong. Then it will not rotate anti-clockwise either. If the electrons enter perpendicular, it would be parallel to the plane, or if the electrons enter perpendicular, the force will be maximum. Yeah, that is true. The force becomes maximum when the angle between the movement of electron and the field becomes 90 degrees. Okay, so let's just draw that out as well over here. If the electrons are entering from this side, let's say, perpendicularly, that's the direction of electrons, an angle of 90 degrees. Now the electrons will experience a force. Why? Because sine 90 equals 1. And that means that is a maximum value. So yes, if they enter perpendicularly, then the force is going to be maximum. A real image is formed by convex lens is always convex. Now, first of all, you need to know what does a convex mean. Convex and concave. Convex means converging, and concave means diverging. Now, they're saying a real image is formed. So, a convex lens, it will always be erect, inverted, magnified, or diminished. A real image is always on the opposite side. It's not on the same side. Okay. Because it's always on the opposite side of the lens. Or let's say this is the lens. This is F. Okay. This is 2F. And similarly, this is F. This is 2F. Now, if there's an object placed here and an image is being formed over there, it's always going to be inverted. Okay. It's always going to be inverted. A real image is always going to be inverted. So option B is correct. What is true about electric field and electric force? Electric field lines are towards negative and electrons flow in the same direction. Well, if you look at the electric field lines right over here, for electrons, yes, it's going into the field. And for positive charges, it's going to be coming out of the field. Okay? Are towards negative. Electric field lines are towards negative. Electrons flow in the same direction. Well, if you place an electron, it's not going to flow inwards, it's going to move in the opposite direction. Electric field lines are towards the positive and electrons flow in the opposite direction. So they are not towards positive, they're away from positive. That's option B is wrong. Option C, electric field lines are towards negative and electrons flow in the opposite direction. Yes, that's correct. C is correct. If you place an electron here, it will face repulsion and it's going to move opposite. So for 14, it's C. And then D, electric field lines are towards positive and electrons flow in the same direction. That's wrong again. Electric field lines are always away from positive. For positive, it's going to be away. For negative, it's inwards, okay? If you have a positive sign right here, for positive, the electric field lines are away. And in this case as well, electrons will flow in the opposite direction. Okay, because you place an electron here, it will move inwards. It will be attracted. So yeah, option C. Then if electron passes through axis of solenoid, the movement will be parallel to its motion, no force acts on it, towards, outwards, towards, inwards. Now it's moving through the axis of solenoid. Now there is an important concept to be learned here. If you have a solenoid coil, let's say this is a solenoid, electron, this is the current flowing through the solenoid. If you use the right hand rule over here, this is going to be the North Pole and this is going to be the South Pole. Okay? You use the right hand rule to determine the direction of the current and the direction of the magnetic field. Now, if that is the North Pole will have field lines coming out and the South Pole will have field lines going into the coil because the coil will be acting like a magnet, but inside the coil, the field lines are going to be parallel to each other. Okay? Inside the coil on the axis, it's going to be parallel. Now, in that axis, if an electron is flowing like this through this axis again, what happens? The direction of electron is parallel to the field lines when it enters the coil. Okay, electron is also going to move from the inside. Because it's parallel, no force acts. Because again, what's the formula for calculation of force? BQE, sine theta. So parallel to its motion, electron passes through the solenoid, the movement will be parallel. There's no force acts on it. No force acts on it is going to be actually better. Again, they're asking about the movement. So I guess this is a better choice for the motion because we do know that, yeah, it is not having any force acted upon itself because this is going to be 90 and then sine 0. Sorry, this is going to be 0 and sine 0 will be 0 and force will be 0. Therefore, the motion is going to be uninterruptedly moving straight. So option C is correct. Then ejection of electrons from the metal surface due to the heating effect is known as photoelectric effect. Okay. From the metal surface, but heating effect, yeah, fine, you can say that. Photoelectric effect. And Newton's rings are result of reflection, refraction, polarization, diffraction. You can check this out from the textbook directly. If the amplitude is 200, the intensity is 300. When the amplitude is increased to 800, what will be the intensity? Amplitude is directly proportional to intensity squared. No, opposite. Intensity is proportional to amplitude squared. That's how you write it. Okay. So if you were to write this down in an equation, so it's going to be I1 over I2 equals A1 squared over A2 squared. Now just put in the formulas. So the amplitude is 200 squared, the intensity is 300. Then the amplitude is increased to 800 squared. What will the intensity be? Cross multiply, get the answer. 1 over 16 multiplied by 300. 16 into 300. This is turning out to be 4800. I think there is an error. Let's just see what's the error over here. So yes, 4800 is the correct answer, which is not given here. I guess this is a misprint. So yes, it's 4800. Well, this question bank that I found on the internet has a lot of errors. So please be careful whenever solving a question from such a question mark, okay? Electric conduction is high in graphite would be the best option because it has electrons, whereas sugar solution it has ions, but electrons are faster than sugar solutions, okay? So C is a better choice. Then 20. If the speed of a wave is 10 meters per second, its frequency is 5 hertz. Find the wavelength. So just use the formula V equals F lambda. Lambda equals V over F. So 10 over 5 is true. Units of gravitational constant are. For this, just use the formula F is equal to G M over R squared. Just rearrange and you'll get the answer. It's going to be F R squared over mm equals G. This is gravitational constant. So how do you calculate the F and R squared and mm? So let's see. Force is equals to kg ms minus 2, okay, multiplied by m squared divided by kg squared. So this is, well, Newton meter squared per kg squared is the answer in reality. But they're asking about, well, the units that are given right here, none of them match with the actual units, Newton meter squared per kg squared. So that means they are not asking about the gravitational constant, rather I think they are asking about the small g, the gravitational field strength, which is newtons per kg. So if that is newtons per kg, Newton is kg ms minus 2 divided by kg. Kg gone, it's ms minus 2. So it's ms minus 2. There's an error in this question, just be careful. Okay, this is not a capital M, this has to be a small m, which they're asking about. All of these are small m, these are the meters per second squared. Okay, so, and yes, they are asking about the small g, not about the capital G. Okay, and so let's just correct this quickly. Instead of this, this is a small g. The small g's formula is Newton's, units are newtons per kg. Now Newton is kg ms minus 2, right? Divided by kg. Kg gone, you're only left with ms minus 2. So ms minus 2 is your answer. If power is 100 watt, the voltage is 220 volts. Resistance. Power is V squared over R. So R equals V squared over power. So voltage squared, 220 multiplied by 220 upon power, which is 100. 22 multiplied by 22. Wait, why are they giving answers in point form? Never mind, 22 into 22 should be, let's calculate it, 24 ohms. Now do we have something similar to this? 2.84 should be 3. We have a 3, but we don't have anything like this over here. But this is the formula that has to be used. Okay, they've not given us any proper answers. I think the units are different over here. This might not be volts, might be kilovolts, or this might be millivolts. Or this, the answer options might be in kilo ohms. So anyways, you know the methodology and the correct answer. Let's move on. Third law of Newton is called the law of equilibrium, inertia. Third law of inertia is the first law. This is the first law of Newton. Newton's first law is known as law of inertia. Fractional change in resistance per Kelvin is known as the temperature coefficient of resistance. This is correct. It's the fractional change in resistance per Kelvin. Okay, alpha. Then to convert the silicon crystals into p-type semiconductors, which group must be doped? So now p-type means phosphorus type. It's positive type, sorry, not phosphorus type. Positive type, and positive types are the ones that has holes in it. Holes means trivalent. Trivalent impurity needs to be added. Trivalent, trivalent, there you go. Not pentavalent. Now, current measuring part of AVOmeter consists of a number of low resistance connected at an angle of 180 degrees parallel to the galvanometer, perpendicular of 45. Now, see, if you are measuring current, current is always in series, right? Ammeter is always in series. So you can just say this parallel to the galvanometer. Energy supplied by the cell to the charge carriers is derived from the conversion of energy supplied to the charge carriers is derived from the conversion of what? Now, if you are supplying energy to the charge carriers, to the electrons, let's say when they are passing through the battery, this is a battery, and let's say some charges are passing through it. Okay, like this, for example. So they're getting charged over here. Now, how are they getting their energy? Well, the chemical energy stored in the battery is converted into electrical energy. So chemical energy is getting converted into electrical energy. Chemical energy stored in the battery is converting into electrical energy. IV graph from straight line is due to, well, IV characteristics, if you remember, the four types of graphs over here, straight line, and then graph like this, a graph like that. So these graphs, the IV, in this case, the reciprocal of the gradient, 1 over the gradient is equals to the resistance, right? So if the resistance changes, the gradient will change. So decrease in temperature and decrease in resistance, the increase in temperature, increase in resistance, decrease in temperature, increase in temperature, well, and decrease in resistance. In fact, the deviation is due to a change in resistance. That's the thing. So all the options have the changes in the resistance. And this usually occurs when there is an increase in temperature, there is a decrease in, increase in temperature, there is an increase in resistance. So decrease in temperature, increase in resistance, increase in temperature, increase in resistance. This is for the tungsten filament. Okay, in tungsten filament, this is the reason why the graph deviates. So we can go with B. Okay, increase in temperature, decrease in resistance, that's for thermistor. So this is also correct. This is also not wrong. So both B and D can be the answers. Okay, because in both the cases, the IV graph is going to deviate from the straight line. Okay. Information received at the other end of a fiber can be inaccurate due to the dash of the light signal. Due to the this one. But this is not the word. I think they're trying to say disproportionate spreading. The pressure on the other side and energy will, inside the vessel will be the same according to the Pascal's law. Yes, fluid dynamics. Value of universal constant is 8.314 joules per mole Kelvin. Joules per mole Kelvin. The unit is moles inverse only. Okay, for a adiabatic process. For adiabatic process, not a diabatic process. The first law of thermodynamics is this one. Because adiabatic mein delta Q की value is going to be 0 because Q is constant. So if Q is saying 0, then that means this formula is going to change. The formula U is equals to W plus Q. Q becomes 0, so U equals W. That's correct. Entropy of the universe always increases. Always increases, okay? If the body is rotating with uniform angular velocity, the torque is, if it is uniform, the torque has to be 0. Remember this. If uniform, torque is not being applied at all, so it's 0. The direction of the magnetic field lines of forces depends upon direction of magnetic lines of forces, nature of the material, area of the conducting wire, amount of the current, and the option D is missing here, so let's just leave it. The uniform magnetic field is represented by a set of lines of forces which are parallel to each other. Okay, if it's uniform, it has to be parallel. Weber ampere meter per meter is equals to Weber ampere upon meter. Weber means B I over L is what? BIL is BIL, not Weber ampere per meter. It's Weber ampere meter. BIL, yeah, that's F. Only then will it be equal to F. Okay, Weber ampere meter. What is Weber ampere meter equal to? Not this. Because आंसर उन्होंने फोर्स दिया हुआ है तो फोर्स न्यूटन का दिया हुआ है तो न्यूटन तभी हो सकता है जब ये हो सकता है so Weber into ampere into meters is equals to Newton. Okay, because F is equals to B I L. Difference between soft and hard exchanges of सॉफ्ट एंड हार्ड एक्सप्रेशन इंटेंसिटी। फ्रीक्वेंसी इंटेंसिटी दोनों ही होते हैं, लेकिन ज्यादा सूटेबल आंसर फ्रीक्वेंसी ही होगा। एनर्जी बेसिकली से एनर्जी, सो एनर्जी इज डायरेक्टली प्रोपोर्शनल टू फ्रीक्वेंसी। विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग इज एन इंस्ट्रूमेंट फॉर द मॉनिटरिंग ऑफ रेडिएशंस? ये सारे ही हैं, ऑल ऑफ देम। देन विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग इज अ पेयर ऑफ आइसोबार्स? आइसोबार्स, आइसोबार्स क्या होते हैं भाई? जिनमें न्यूट्रॉन सेम हो। चलिए देख लीजिएगा। हाफ लाइफ ऑफ रेडियो एक्टिव एलिमेंट्स डिपेंड्स अपॉन द नथिंग। नो, doesn't depend on anything. Which of the following is the percentage of the original quantity of radioactive material left after five half-lives approximately? Five half-lives के बाद कितना हो जाएगा? अगर let's say ये 100 है, first half-life से 50, फिर 50 से 25, 25 से 12.5, 12.5 से 6.123, फिर 6 पॉइंट समथिंग, 6.025, फिर उसके बाद लास्ट हाफ लाइफ के बाद 3 के आसपास 3% तक पहुंच जाएगा ये। Then when nucleus de-excite, it emits all of them. नहीं है, not all of them. एक्साइटेशन डी एक्साइटेशन हो रही है ना, गैमा रेज होगी, एक्स्ट्रा एनर्जी रिलीज हो रही है। डायरेक्शन ऑफ मैग्नेटिक लाइंस ऑफ फोर्सेस डिपेंड्स अपॉन द नेचर ऑफ, अच्छा ये रहा, डायरेक्शन ऑफ द करंट सही है। करंट अगर एक डायरेक्शन में होगा तो एक तरफ होगी, अगर ऑपोजिट डायरेक्शन में कर देंगे करंट को, तो डायरेक्शन ऑफ फील्ड लाइंस ऑपोजिट हो जाएगी। ओके।